One of the greatest action movie franchises of all time is back with a new release, that franchise being John Wick. And today, given the release of Chapter 4, we're now going to be ranking all 4 of the John Wick films. But before we get into the ranking, I have to clarify that all of these films are very good, especially for the action genre. So it's been quite a tough list all throughout. Like, the film I have in last place is still a very good film, but unfortunately the other ones are better in my opinion. And that is the thing to keep in mind, that this is my opinion and I'm sure yours is very different to mine, so I'd like to hear what yours is down below. But without further ado, let's get into my ranking of all 4 John Wick movies. In last place, I actually have the original John Wick, which may be controversial, but as I said, this list is full of quality, so it's very hard to choose between all of them. The first John Wick is the one I ended up with in last place. On a different day, this may have been higher up on the list because it's a very simple story and it features some brilliant action, so therefore there's a lot to like about it. Obviously, the main appeal of this franchise is its insanely well crafted choreography when it comes to the action sequences, and of course that applies to this film here. No matter how many times you watch it and you revisit it, you're still blown away by how well executed it is. It is certainly over the top in many aspects, especially with the song choices in certain scenes, but it's hard to deny that it is a lot of fun. The reason why this one falls into last place is some nitpicks, and that's what this ranking has come down to, nitpicks, because there is such similar quality with all these films. The film feels like it reaches its climax when there's still a little bit of the film left to go, and that extra bit on the end is a bit anticlimactic. And also, as I mentioned, this is a very straightforward story. It doesn't really feature the heavy lore involved in the sequels. That lore is some stuff that I really enjoy about these films, so the absence of it here, which, while understandable, doesn't make it as interesting for me, but nonetheless it's still a very solid action film.
Take it back. Take it back.
As we've reached the first sequel on this list, I'd like to clarify that every single John Wick entry, the action is improved upon. So here we are treated some phenomenal fight sequences and some of the best action sequences of all time. The scale that these scenes are pulled off in, and all in one take as well, just makes this so impressive and absolutely shocking to see every time. And it's not just the same old action every time, you know, you have hand-to-hand combat, you have guns involved, you have car chases, you even have horse chases, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other ones off the top of my head, but you just feel an insane amount of energy from start to finish. The film is essentially John Wick on the run for the entire runtime, so the world building is kind of put on hold a little bit compared to Chapter 2. While it was fun with all this action and everything, it didn't feel like as well as a constructed story as Chapter 2, as it was more just an entire runtime of these action sequences with sprinkles of those elements. But nonetheless, those action sequences blew me away every time. Keanu Reeves proves that he is the perfect man for the role. In terms of the dialogue side of things, anyone could be John Wick, but what Keanu Reeves pulls off is true acting with his stunt work. You know, he's doing everything himself, and it just makes it all feel so much more real. I've lost count at the amount of times I've said this on this channel, but a sequel's job is to build upon the original. If it's successful, you know, expand the world, and John Wick Chapter 2 perfects that. The story is straightforward, but there are so many new features which elevate the film to new heights with the addition of the world building and just explaining the lore of these films. You know, after watching the first John Wick film and essentially recapping it as a man going on a revenge killing spree after someone killed his dog, it's truly amazing how far the franchise came just with its first follow-up film. It feels unique and gains a new style, and combining that with the already established fantastic action sequences, it's just a nice blend. While John Wick was a success, John Wick Chapter 2 really turned it into a mega franchise with bringing in so many new ideas and concepts, which made it able to be a franchise to rank. As soon as I stepped out of the cinema, John Wick Chapter 4 was instantly my favourite of the bunch. You take all the best elements of the films and you see them perfected here. I didn't hesitate with my thoughts after seeing the film, and a few days later I still haven't hesitated to say this, but I genuinely think it's one of the best action films of all time. You have everything you could want. You have the perfect action choreography, which just features so many fresh, new fight scenarios, even 4 entries into this franchise. They're all truly astonishing, and they just draw you in whenever you watch them. You know, you can't take your eyes off of them, and you're so immersed in it that you forget that this is all shot in like a one take, so it makes it even more impressive in hindsight. The cinematography has always been good in these films, but it just seemed to be on a new level here. And while the action has always been the standout for me in these films alongside the lore, I couldn't help but just love the cinematography in this film, whether that's due to the color palette, the lighting, the angles itself, or even just the locations. This film just looks great. This franchise has been consistent, but the villains haven't been too memorable, at least for me. However, here, Donnie Yen and Bill Skarsgård really stand out, especially Donnie Yen. While he feels a bit like Daredevil, his fight sequences were just so unique and it's just so cool. Something which we haven't really got in the previous entries is character depth to these side characters, and Donnie Yen gets enough where you really root for him in certain scenarios, as well as just finding him entertaining whenever he's on screen. John Wick Chapter 4 contains all of the franchise's best qualities, yet takes them to a new level. The 3-hour runtime may be a bit excessive to some, but within those 3 hours you're treated to some of the finest action ever put onto screen. In the end, I found it worth it, and not only is this my best John Wick film, but it's also one of the best action films I have ever seen. So that is my ranking of all 4 John Wick movies. I'm aware that we're getting 2 new shows, or a show and a movie, in the next year and a half or so I'll be looking out for those. But please let me know what your ranking is down below. I'm eager to see, as this is such a consistent franchise that many rankings can be different. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video.